Alright, the next step after we've gone through drawn the footing and the foundation is we want to find the location of any openings within the foundation. So we know that we're going to have two 10-foot wide doors on this wall in the front, and we're going to have a 3-foot man door on this side. So we could just simply do something like this, offset this, and I'm going to explode these so that they're not P-lines anymore. We could offset over 10 feet, and then again I could have a door here and a door here, and then the rest of this will be wall. But that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to do something like that. We want to have some spacing in between. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we use our modular spacing rules or modular dimension rules for concrete blocks. And with each concrete block being 16 inches long and also being able to get 8-inch long ones, half blocks, basically what we end up with is 1'4", 2'0", 2'8", 3'4", 4 feet, 4 feet 8. So the rule is if we have an even number of feet, the inches must end in 0 or 8 inches, and if we have an odd number of feet, the inches have to end in 4 inches. And we do that basically so that we don't have to cut any block. So whenever I'm laying out where this first door is going to be, first thing I want to do is I want to be at least 3 or 4 feet off of that wall, so that whenever I pull a vehicle in here, I have enough space to open up the door. So we could do it a couple different ways. We could basically just use that as a starting point. We could offset over 4 feet from each side. I'm going to change these to that layer, our foundation layer, and then I could offset my 10 feet. Whenever I do my offset command, I'm going to choose this layer and go back to source instead of current. So I'm going to offset my 10 feet, and then I could just simply use my DIST distance tool to measure in between here and see what I have. Right now I have 8 feet left. So that's quite a bit of space in the middle. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to look at this total distance, and the front wall is 36 feet total, and I'm going to subtract out the 2 doors. So 36 feet minus 20 feet for the 2 doors would give me 16 feet. If I divide that by 3, I'm going to get 5 feet 4 inches. So 5 feet 4, it's odd feet, and it ends in 4 inches, so it follows our modular dimension rules. So that would be an easy one to use to give nice even dimensions the whole way throughout here. So I'm going to offset 5 feet 4 inches from the outside, and then I'm going to offset my 10 feet for my doors, and I'm going to measure this, just make sure it's 5'4" in the middle, and it is. So at this point I can go through and I'm going to use the trim command, and the first thing it's going to ask me for to select the objects that I want to for my cutting edges. So this is like a great big pair of scissors here. This would be where my scissors would be. So I select that as the cutting edge, hit my space bar for enter, and then I draw a window across all those lines. So right now I have these lines representing where the doors would be, the overhead doors. So it makes a lot less difference on this side So it's really a matter of where you'd want the door. So if you have a house that sits somewhere back here, I may want to have the door back on this side of the wall. If the house is over here, I might want to have the door opening right here. I'm basically just going to offset 24 inches or 2 feet off of that wall there and see what it gives me. So whenever I do that, I'm going to be left with 16 inches right here. It's not very much of a usable space. If I did want to put anything right here, any shelving or anything, so I'm going to try 4 feet instead. And that gives me a little bit more space to use this right here. So I'm going to trim this. And I said my door was 3 feet. The actual door opening was 3 feet, but we also need to include the frame. So we're going to give ourselves, the frame would typically be a 3/4 inch thick frame, but I can't attach that frame directly to the block easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some 2x4s in there to build out this frame, and I'm going to use a 3'4" opening for this so that it's modular and I have enough space to add that door in. So I'm going to offset 3 feet 4, and then I'm just going to double check the rest of my dimensions. I know that from here to here is my 4 feet, which is modular. This is 3'4" from right there to there, which is modular. So those are good, and this should be good from there to there, and it is 20 feet 8 inches, which is still modular. So right now I have all those openings in place. And if we look back at the design criteria, there was also going to be a window over here on this wall and a window over on this wall. The difference is those two openings are not going to cut into this foundation at all. So we don't have to worry about those in this foundation drawing. So we're basically done with a lot of this drawing here. We're still going to need to put dimensions on, and we also need to go through and add cut lines for the floor. So basically, whenever I pour a concrete slab, this is going to be a very large concrete slab, and what we need to do is we need to tell the contractors exactly where to cut that slab. So if you've ever walked on a sidewalk and you see all those lines, those are there for a purpose. So those are cut joints that basically, if the concrete starts cracking, they're either going to crack right at those joints, or if they start cracking, they're going to stop at those joints. So it's a way of predicting where or forcing the concrete to crack in certain locations, and then we can put caulking in it so that you don't end up with a crack that runs from one corner to the other. So the rule of thumb for laying out cut joints is if I have any supports in the middle, I want to isolate those and have my control joints or my cut joints go away from any supports like columns in the middle. Since we don't have anything in the middle, the next rule that we have to adhere to is a 20-foot maximum span for the concrete. So in this direction, this was about 28 feet. And in this direction, it was 36 feet. So I can real quickly and easily look at this and see that I'm going to need a cut joint there, and I would probably need a cut joint here at 20 feet. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go into my layers, and I'm going to create a new layer, And instead of doing it in the layer dialog box, I'm going to type -LA, M for make. I'm going to call it S-cut joint. And I want this to be a relatively light line, so I'm going to make this color 15. And now I have a layer called S-cut joint that is my current layer. So the easiest thing to do for these cut joints in this particular layout is to probably just go from middle of the wall to the middle of the wall. So we're cutting the concrete, and whenever you look at this, it does not stop at the footing because this footing is actually underneath the concrete. So your cut joint is going to go the whole way to the perimeter. This concrete block foundation wall. So right now I have cut joints in place. So in the next drawing, we'll go through and start annotating. We'll add dimensions, set up dimension text, we'll set up text style to add notes for our control joints, and that will do a lot for this drawing.